Rennie's face appeared in his mirror. Girl, you look like you were wrestling with a bunch of broccoli. You kids will jump on the latest fad no matter how silly you look. This isn't a fashion statement, Sabrina cried. She heard Puck laughing at her from the door of the cabin, and she spun around to face him. What did you do to me? She asked. Don't get all freaked out, Grim. It'll wear off by the time you start college, Puck said. The rest of the family pushed their way into the cabin. Looks like he slipped you a water toady egg, Uncle Jake said. Granny smiled weakly. It's not harmful. We have a remedy in the hall, but what? Well, the remedy has side effects, Uncle Jake explained. What kind of side effects? You'll grow a tail, Puck smirked. Sabrina was about to strangle Puck, but Prince Charming stormed into the cabin demanding that someone do something about Goldilocks. She's moving everything around. Goldie followed close behind. This camp's energies are out of balance. You can't have the catapult near the water tower. Water has a calming effect on people. You should put the catapult somewhere where people are excited, like the fire pit. See, she's talking nonsense. It's not nonsense. It's feng shui, and it's thousands of years old, Goldilocks said. It can help everything and everyone stay in their harmonics. This is a military complex. It's not supposed to have harmonics. You asked me for my help, William, the woman said stubbornly. This isn't what I had in mind. I need fighters, especially ones with unique talents. You can command an animal army, but instead you're moving the ammunition and the horses so they are one with the universe. Woman, we're launching an attack tonight. What? Henry cried. You didn't tell us that. I'm not in the habit of discussing my plans with you, Charming snapped, then turned to Sabrina. He examined her from head to toe. You are such a strange child. Sabrina growled. Puck laughed again. Charming turned his attention back to Henry. Hood and the merry men only found one of the hobgoblins you let get away. The other has assuredly returned to the hand to report where we are located. They are likely organizing to attack us as we speak, and I have no intention of sitting and waiting for it to happen. We're going to strike first. It may be our only opportunity to surprise them. Granny gave Sabrina the antidote for her green skin. It was a thick, coppery tasting concoction that changed her skin back to normal within a few seconds. The side effect, however, could appear at any time. Sabrina knew if she sat around worrying about when it would sprout, she would go crazy, so she plunged into training to keep herself distracted. It was a particularly busy day as everyone prepared for the battle ahead. As the hours ticked by, Sabrina noticed an odd phenomenon coming over the refugees. The Everafters couldn't help being totally honest with one another. Perhaps with so much on the line, they were giving their lives a second look. Everafters rushed around confessing their undying love for one another. Miss White and Beauty were nearly mobbed with not-so-secret admirers. Even Mr. Seven mustered courage to ask Morgan Le Fay to take a walk with him around the camp. It seemed like an odd pairing, but the beautiful witch looked flattered when she accepted his invitation. Still, some soldiers were panicked. Snow gathered them together for a pep talk. She didn't lie. She told them that the battle would be dangerous and that people might be injured, but everyone was well trained. She told them that fighting back was a tremendous risk, but that they would be celebrated as heroes wherever Everafters lived. And Ferryport Landing yawned. Sabrina watched their nervous faces harden and the fear in their eyes transform into fierce determination. When Snow walked away, the group was demanding to be launched at the Scarlet Hand. They couldn't wait to fight. Perhaps it was that Miss White was a natural leader, or it was the effect of her many years as a teacher, but the refugees believed in her. It was hard to reconcile this woman with the one who not so long ago expressed her own fear and self-doubt to Sabrina. She's impressive, Charming said as he watched Snow rally the troops. You should tell her that yourself, Sabrina said. I don't want to encourage it. She could get hurt. I want to keep her safe. That's not what she needs from you, Sabrina said. You're just a child. What do you know? Charming snapped. After a long moment, he spoke again. Did she say something to you? Sabrina nodded. Yes, but I don't think she'd appreciate it if I repeated it to you. Let's just say that treating her like a China doll is not going to work. It feels like keeping her safe is in my blood sometimes. It's not an easy thing to turn off, he admitted. How do I protect a woman who doesn't want to be protected? Mr. Seven approached. The army is moving into the Hall of Wonders as you asked, he reported. Very good, my friend, Charming said, patting Mr. Seven on the back. I think tonight a few of us are going to become legions, including you. But if you get killed out there, I'm going to fire you. I don't work for you anymore, Seven said, smiling. Details, Charming said, holding out his hand. Seven nodded and the two men shook respectfully, and then Mr. Seven raced away. The troops gathered beneath the vaulted ceiling of the Hall of Wonders. Charming, Snow White, Robin Hood, and Mr. Canis stood at the front of the crowd. The prince called for everyone's attention. You have all worked hard to learn to fight. Now it's time to learn how to win. Sabrina and her family watched from the back of the crowd. Mirror joined them and seemed quite interested in the plan. Charming explained it in complicated detail, but when he finished, Sabrina understood that the assault would be on the Ferryport Landing Marina. It sat on the very edge of town. Charming reported that spies had discovered that Everafters living outside of the town were secretly shipping supplies and magical weapons to the hand. If the troops could destroy the dock, there would be no place for the supply ships to land, thus cutting off a valuable source of aid to the master and his evil army. To accomplish this, the army needed a four-pronged attack. The 1st Battalion would be commanded by Goldilocks. She would use her unique ability to speak with animals to direct an air force of birds. They would distract the hand's guards so that Robin Hood could launch a second assault with his trained archers, raining arrows down on any Scarlet Hand soldiers guarding the marina. Next, Mr. Seven would lead a team of Lilliputians, mice, and other very small Everafters down to the docks, where they would attach explosives underneath the dock itself. Then we drop the hammer, Prince Charming explained. Arthur's knights will storm the docks, drawing out more of the Hand's forces. When the time is right, our troops will make a sudden retreat just before the bombs explode. And what do I do? Snow asked. She was visibly angry. I'm not going to sit by while everyone else risks their lives. Relax, Miss White, Charming said. You've got the best job of the whole attack. You get to detonate the explosives. Oh, Snow smiled. I'm a big fan of this plan. What about you, Canis? Puss in Boots asked the old man. What's your part in this plan? My assistant and I will be fighting our own battle tonight, the old man replied, placing his hand on Red Riding Hood's shoulder. Red has made tremendous progress. We hope that tonight we may be able to finally access her memories and reveal the identity of the master. Prince Charming gestured into the crowd, and now Friar Tuck will lead us in a prayer. A bald, overweight man with a veiny nose stepped forward. His kind eyes scanned the crowd. Let us join hands and lower our heads. Sabrina took Daphne's hand and Mr. Borman's. Geppetto held hands with the Scarecrow. Rip Van Winkle held hands with Jack Pumpkinhead. Beauty held hands with Frau Pfefferkuchenhaus, and together they all prayed. Though they each held their own beliefs and traditions, they quietly asked for their own safety and the safety of the others, for the success of their fight, and for the enlightenment of their enemies. Sabrina did the same. She hadn't been to church since her parents' abduction and wondered if anyone in heaven would still listen to her, but she closed her eyes and whispered her hopes anyway. When it was over, the troops donned their armor, picked up their shields and weapons, and marched through the portals and then on through the massive gates of the camp. Sabrina and her family stood by, waving to everyone and wishing them luck. So many familiar faces passed by, and there was no guarantee they would ever return. Pinocchio watched as his father marched to war. Geppetto's uniform was too big, and he was having a difficult time with his bow and quiver, but he continued onward. "Be a good boy," he said, hugging his son. "Farewell, Papa," Pinocchio replied. "They're not ready," Sabrina whispered to her grandmother. The old woman nodded sadly. "No one is ever ready for war." Uncle Jake trailed behind the army. When Granny spotted him with the other soldiers, she began to cry. "This is not your fight, Jake," Henry called out to him. Uncle Jake turned and pointed at Briar's grave. "It is now." Hours passed, and the family huddled together in the mess tent, waiting for word of this battle. They said nothing to one another, but their worried eyes spoke loud and clear. Even Elvis was fidgety, chomping at a fly that kept landing on his nose. After some time, Pinocchio approached, and his smiling face dissolved some of the tension. Sabrina wondered how he could be so carefree with his father in so much danger. "I come bearing gifts," the little boy said, setting his burlap sack on the table. "They're not much, but I hope you enjoy them." He handed a marionette to Sabrina. She peered at it closely and smiled when she realized it looked just like her. The figure had blonde hair and blue eyes and even had her dimple on its right cheek. She marveled at its intricacies all the way down to the dingy sneakers and her favorite blue shirt. "I love it," Daphne said when Pinocchio handed her one that looked just like her. Granny Rhoda smiled as she looked down at her marionette. It wore a bright pink dress with a matching hat, complete with a sunflower painted in its center. "I wanted to thank you. You have all been such wonderful friends to my dear father," the boy said as he reached into his sack and took out marionettes for Henry and Veronica. Pucks featured his filthy green hoodie. There was even one for Elvis. "It's nearly as good looking as I am," Puck said, admiring his gift. "Pinocchio, these are truly remarkable," Granny said. "You must have worked so hard," Veronica added. "One can be quite industrious with the right inspiration," the boy said. "I don't know what to say," Henry said. He moved the strings and his marionette did a funny little dance. "If I knew we were giving presents, I would have gotten you something," Sabrina said, slightly embarrassed. "Well, there is something you could do to return the favor," the boy said. "Name it," Daphne said. "I was hoping Sabrina might give me some instruction on flying the magic carpet. I'm quite curious about it, but did not want to get in the way of the soldiers. Could I trouble you for a lesson?" "Look at all these doors!" Pinocchio cried as he and Sabrina soared through the Hall of Wonders aboard the carpet. "How many do you think there are?" "I don't know," Sabrina said. "My grandmother says there are hundreds, but even she isn't sure. What do you suppose to be behind all of them?" "Trouble for the most part. It must be thrilling to have access at your leisure," the boy said. That seems to be the end of this video. I'll send more later. Goodbye.